This region around the Great Lakes has been called the heartland. When it comes to agriculture, there's hardly an area in the world that compares.
Everybody, just hold on. I don't know what we're going to have here.
There's a lot of self-proclaimed geniuses out there that know the national yield, but they're all wrong.
Manage money, piling in.
Double digits higher.
So at this point, we're in kind of uncharted territory.
There's a lot of money on the sidelines.
So that was a crazy one.
That's what brings the viewers back. That a boy.
Good morning, everybody. It's Monday, May 11th, and this is the AgYield War Room. I'm Dan Dempsey, and I'll be moderating today's session. As always, if you got any questions or comments, please feel free to drop us a line in the chat area. I'll be sure to get to it during the show. Overnight markets here, July corn up 3 1/4 at 474.5. July soybeans were up 10.5 at 1218.5, and July Chicago wheat was up 8.5 at 627.5. This morning we had a couple of export sales announcements. 380,000 metric tons of corn was sold to Mexico. 220,000 was for the 25 crop, and 160,000 was for new crop 26. Also announced here this morning 128,000 corn to South Korea, and that was for old crop 25. As we start out the week here, guys, we got a USDA report out tomorrow. We've got a Trump-Xi meeting scheduled to begin Thursday and Friday. So I think all eyes are pointed there. And of course, big news over the weekend, President Trump not real thrilled with the Iranians' response to the peace proposal. So we'll see what lends itself there as well. Good morning, guys. Hope everybody had a great weekend. Dustin, a lot going on still. Funds were big buyers last week. New contract highs overnight there in Nove Beans. Interesting to see. What are your thoughts as we start the week?
Yeah, I think, the Trump and Xi meeting are going to be probably the biggest headlines. A lot of people were, anticipating that it would be relatively, kind of calm U.S.-Iranian headlines going into this meeting because that was part of the reason that they delayed their meeting, last time around. It's the ongoing war. So it's interesting that there still is a big divide between the negotiations, in the Persian Gulf going into this. So I still think that's kind of like there's a bit of concern over the next 3 days, especially that if things escalate big out of nowhere, that would be an awkward situation going into that meeting, because I know this is going to be a big talking point, peace in the Middle East. But I think the other thing is WASDE report. That's going to be something we want to watch because it's the first new crop report that we're gonna write down. At the acreage that we have for corn and at trendline yields, we'll probably have plenty of supply, but we have huge demand too at the same time. So it'd be interesting to see how the market reacts to seeing those numbers, even though there really shouldn't be much of a surprise there. It still can have some movement once people start really thinking about next year's balance sheets. So real close to $5 new crop corn. We're above $5 for red D's 27 corn. And we're at good spots for getting coverage ahead of these things if you are in need of catching up.
Very good. Justin, still a lot going on here. I guess what's on your mind this morning?
Yeah, I guess not much different than last week. To Dustin's point, I think there's probably a lot of optimism going into this meeting. In the way that things change, I mean, it could be canceled before Thursday. I mean, who knows? I mean, I think there's just kind of fatigue, like we've talked about a lot on the show, but, even crude oil with some of the things, it's just kind of like rinse and repeat. It's kind of getting stuck in a range where it can't really break too much because the strait is still closed. You are dwindling down rolled supplies of crude oil. So I think there's a timer on that where maybe the crude oil market can't stand it anymore. But for now it seems, somewhat optimistic that something will get figured out, in relative short order. Our markets, to Dustin's point, I mean, we're contract highs in Nove beans. We're not far from it in D's corn. Weather's going to warm up nicely. We're going to get a lot planted this week. I think crops will start really kind of shooting, growing pretty quick and looking good and all those kind of things. So, and we are in that that time frame. So a lot of uncertainty, reason that we're at these kind of prices. Obviously, I think there's some pretty good cases to make where you could, continue a bull market from here if, a few things happened. And I think there's some decent cases for putting in a high end also in the near future. So to that point, that's why I think you just got to really look at your own situation and be like, am I in a spot where I feel okay with either one of those scenarios happening? I think that's all you can do here.
Yeah. Would you call looking at like fund positioning last week? Certainly big buyers of corn and beans. I mean, would you call that's obviously defending that position here ahead of all the things that are coming down the line?
Yeah. And for whatever, who knows why, all sorts of reasons, right? Inflation, crude oil, there's a lot of money circulating around, and a lot of different funds take positions on for different reasons. But, that being said, we're basically record long in corn and the bean complex, which has been great. It's helped us to this point. And index fund buying has also been big. So not just managed money, but also index, which is the passive long only investment type fund. So the combination of all that has been a tremendous amount of, buying futures contracts. So obviously if the narrative changes for whatever reason, we have new Fed chair coming in, there's a lot of things that could change that might not have anything to do with what, corn and bean yields are or the Chinese meeting that could make these funds want to flip the other way, so you just have to be, all this money just moves so quick anymore. And it's not our job to know why they do it. I think you just have to be prepared if they do. So no matter how you look at it, it's been a tremendous amount of futures and options contracts that they've bought here the last 5-6 months.
Yeah. Well, and on the flip side, you got the producer merchant position uber short. So they've been selling it, the farmer's been selling it to them. Yeah,
for sure. And right or wrong, right? I mean, I think that you kind of had to, we had coming off of really big crops. So it was really a good year for them to decide they wanted to own a bunch of futures contracts because we had a lot of physical contracts to sell them. And it was coming off some pretty tough times, and it's still not completely rosy out there. I think it's a lot more breathing room than we had a few months ago. It's not, we're not printing money like, back in the, 2012 days or 13 days or anything like that, because obviously costs are so high, but certainly a big sigh of relief for a lot of guys here. That's why I think it's, even more important to make sure that you take advantage of it to some degree, which obviously the Commitment of Traders report shows that a lot of farmers have.
Yeah, it's good to see. Ben, what's on your mind?
Looking at Commitment of Traders that came out on Friday, you look at that and how much things have grown, and prior times that we were bucking up against the records for long contracts by the managed money. And the first thing that comes to mind for me is maybe things that have gotten so big that those old records were meant to be broken. I do think that we're at a crossroads in the grain markets right now, and there's a lot of things that are going to happen this week. So, I think, Justin's point, be comfortable with where you sit, because if managed money gets rewarded and is right, we have to go a little bit further to find the next slug of offers, because they have bought a tremendous amount. And with the commercials being pretty heavily short, I think if they sense that it's rolling over, they're going to step back, knowing that they've got 350,000 contracts that have to come out. And, managed monies may just hang in here until they see what that late June, early July weather looks like. And we may kind of not go anywhere for a little bit. I know that seems like an odd assessment, but there's we're kind of in a standoff mode here of where's this going to go from here. So I think you just be patient. Days like today, tomorrow, you kind of let it play out.
Hey, Ben, I think that's a good point too. When you look at some of those previous records, those years where they had, record long positions, the S&P is 2 to 3x what it was back in some of those years. So when you talk about available money supply, or just the amount of money that these managers manage, I do think that those records will be, in a year where where it works for them, I think you'll see those records blown away. So I think that's a very important part of, when you talk about how much dollars they own of ag, it's small, every day it gets smaller because of just how much money's out there in the markets in general right now.
Good stuff, fellas. Got a couple minutes here around. Let's talk livestock for a minute. Interesting. We got cash is now at a huge premium to the board, so it'll be interesting to see how we work through that here this week. And pretty boring overall in the hog complex. Not a lot. We're not going anywhere fast here. So, what are your thoughts as we start the week?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Kind of an unprecedented situation. I mean, you got cash going up $2 to $3, and then you got the futures just getting smashed here. So I think everybody wants to know what's going on. I know there's been a lot of rumors kind of circulating about just what's going to happen with Brazil if imports are really going to start ramping up. I think that is a legitimate fear. It does feel like we're seeing a pretty active role here right now. Just with the managed money. I mean, at this point, Commitment to Traders report kind of confirms suspicion that, managed money is still kind of a big active supporter here. Net long 142,000 contracts, bought 5,300 last week. So they're just 15,000 contracts shy of their record at this point. And it makes sense, right? We've got lowest herd in 75 years, and we don't have a cattle on feed report to kind of give us any clarity, I think, for the next 2 weeks. So it just feels like you got a lot of money, just in outside money, just kind of influencing the situation right here. So maybe things tighten up, but otherwise the cash feels like it's king right now, just because it's got such a big premium and at record high levels. So I think something to just kind of be cognizant of, that it kind of feels like you ran into the roll here towards the end of the week, and maybe just a little bit of headline trade. And on the hog side of things, yeah, market's been pretty weak. I mean, new lows for the move here, just cannot find a spark here. We did see a little bit of a jump in cash on Friday. There's up $3.07, up to 93.77, but could just be a one-off. So I think the market is going to be a little bit cautious here, just to follow that in general. Managed money confirmed, just still liquidating here. They sold 6,500 contracts, and now just net long 51,000. So pretty small position for them. And after, kind of confirming the pseudo rabies, USDA came out and said that this was not going to be any kind of risk to the public here. So it feels like that story kind of got shot down. If there was going to be, any kind of reaction, I think longer term from something like that, or seeing it develop into something bigger. So at this point, just kind of waiting to see if we can see that spark from seasonal demand. Just not quite seeing it yet. Carcass was up $1.96. So we'll see if we get a little bit of support here, just to kind of start here. We're definitely getting into oversold territory, so would like to see things turn around, but obviously just market's a little bit cautious here.
Very good. Appreciate the update there, Ryan. We've got a couple things to point out here. We got weekly crop progress and conditions that'll be out at 3:15 Central here today. We'll take a look at that, discuss that in tomorrow's War Room. Also, USDA report tomorrow morning, 11 o'clock Central. We'll have our reactions there in our premium content section of the War Room report. So go ahead and check that out. Link is in the description. If you want a deeper dive into all the things we talk about every day here on the War Room, that'll give it to you. Also, as I mentioned, access to premium content that we put out periodically there as well. So check it out. And a portion of those subscription fees goes directly to support the AgYield NextGen Foundation, which of course puts on our national scholarship competition. We've got an awesome event coming up July 27th, the AgYield NextGen Classic. I think I'm told we've got a couple spots still available here. So we're kind of extending it so that more and more folks can come out, enjoy the day. Aurora Country Club, July 27th. Meet the team here at AgYield. Also meet the folks that participated in the NextGen Scholarship Competition. The winners will be there, so it's going to be a great day. If you have any questions about registration or anything, please let us know. We can take care of you on that. Appreciate everybody that tunes in and on a daily basis. Go ahead and give us a like and subscribe. We're doing this every day that the markets are open on X, Facebook Live, and YouTube Live at 8:15 Central Time. Appreciate the thoughts and comments here this morning, guys. It was a good show. Hope everybody has a great start to the week, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow.
The War Room is presented by AgYield, a risk management partner of American grain farmers for over 50 years. Looking for more in-depth analysis? Check out the War Room report. Our team's knowledge and expertise delivered straight to your inbox every weekday. Each report delivers key market-moving headlines, critical weather updates, USDA report breakdowns, and exclusive video content. All for $50 a month. And most importantly, 10% of every subscription will go directly to support the AgYield NextGen Foundation, a nonprofit investing in agricultural education and the future of farming. To sign up for the War Room Report, check out the link in the description or learn more at agyield.com. Hey guys, Jack here. Be sure to support the show by hitting the like button, leaving us a comment, and subscribing to the channel for all the latest updates. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.